All in all, taken us a while to get this video together on the gearbox. Obviously you've seen the title. We've had a bit of a move around in the shed. Some of the other projects I wanted to get done before we really got on with this. So the Citroen's done now and I'm using that as my daily driver, all cheese on wheels. The S80 project's come to a stop while I've been doing this, and I've been busy with stuff on the house. And we've had a move round in the shed, and we're going to have another move round in the shed again before too long. I've just been up the road in the Fleetmaster. She drives absolutely perfectly now, and the two things that I've achieved in the work we've done in this video is stop the oil leak on the primary shaft, because we replaced the seal in there, and also it now stays in overdrive gear in first, second and third, which it wasn't doing before. It would only stay in overdrive in fourth. So it's made a massive improvement to how the truck drives, a bit like when we did the tracking. The tracking improved the driving experience. The gearbox now has improved the driving experience, and I think also putting the heavier weight 140 oil in it as opposed to the lighter weight 90s in it has improved the gear change. But a lot of work, more work than I expected with the box. It's probably taken me 4 months to get this done because I'm not always here on my own, so it doesn't always make filming easy. Sometimes we've got Rob and his kids next door, which is it's great to see them and they're interested in what, but it can be noisy. Rob builds some great cars, but they're noisy as well, so it doesn't always make it easy to film. We don't always have the space to film either, so it's been a little bit of a protracted affair getting this video together, but hopefully you'll enjoy it, you'll think it's worthwhile. Cracking, let's get on with it. Right, afternoon all, you join us back at the Fleetmaster. We're going to pull the gearbox this afternoon. We've obviously got that leak on it, we'll have a quick look in the bell housing before we do it. We had a bit of an impromptu unbolting session the other afternoon, me and David. So I've only got these 2 bolts on the top to get out. The only reason we didn't pull it then was I hadn't brought the transmission jack with me because I didn't expect us to get that far. So we'll have a look in the bell housing. I'll undo them 2 bolts, we'll get it on the jack, whip it out. Good show. So it's worth having a closer look inside the bell housing. So as I am looking into this bell housing, I'm lay on my back, I've got my feet towards the back of the vehicle. At the top of the screen you can see we've got the pressure plate, so that's obviously the engine side, and the bottom part is the gearbox. So the first component of note is the cross shaft. It has a lever on the outside which is connected to the clutch pedal linkage. Its main purpose in this part of the job is to rotate, pushing this fork onto the thrust bearing and closing up that gap, that air gap there. The plate that you can see here is the clutch brake plate. So when the clutch fork is pushed forward, it closes up the gap, compresses the clutch brake and stops the gearbox from turning, and this enables a clean engagement of the gear when the truck is stationary. Remember, this is a crash box, not a synchromesh box. This elastic bell housing bolt, we'll get a bar into it next and see if we can just rock it back on the trolley. Just going to lift the arse end of the box up a bit. That should do it. Right, we're obviously clear now with the clutch. We're not clear of all these air pipes, but we're clear of the clutch. We're clear of that back air tank. I couldn't remember whether I had to take that off or not, but we're not. I'm going to drop it down on the jack and see if I can get it to come out between this back mud wing and the battery box. I might need to jack it up. It's not gone bad, that. Right, here we go. Course on these pipes now. Oh, she's worried. She's definitely worried. I've got some wobble in there. I think that's fair to assume why we're struggling with overdrive dropping out in third. I think we've got a bearing failure, or that bolt's gone on the end of the main. So let's get this fork out and see what we've got. Wasn't like that when I built it, because, well, we wouldn't have built it, would we, obviously? Right, well, interestingly, the 17mm appears to fit these best, but yeah, these have got pretty coarse thread on them. They did kind of look a bit metricy, and they've all got this little top hat arrangement thing on them. She's a mess, isn't she? And we've got these springs. There's 3 springs in this carrier, which obviously act as shock absorbers on that plate. Right, that's all as fasteners off, so I think we're going to have a splodgy mess when we pull this. It has got some drawing holes. We may well need them by the look of it. They look like M10. Yeah, M10. I've got some M10 bolts available. M10 bolt. Bit of a turn up in it, M10. That's done. It didn't take any doing that, did it? Look. Oh wow! Oh, look at that! What a swarf in there! Oh man! Seal's absolutely in bits. In fact, there's no seal left there. There's no wonder it was pissing out. Look at that bearing! Wow! I've got a 3/8 UNF bolt, but it's only a very short one. But that might be all we need here. It's also a very chewed up head on it. Well, that's got it moving, I think. See if we can find another one for that side. That's it. Not out the woods, but it is coming. No, surprisingly that bolt's not broken. That bearing's good. She rolls freely. Plenty of oil. You can see the oil coming around, look. No chipped teeth. So I don't know where the spare rollers have gone. Must have gone straight down to the bottom of the box, I'm assuming. Right, evening. We're a couple of days after now when we pulled the shaft from the box. Obviously back in the garage at home. Cleaned up some bits. This is the housing off the front of the gearbox where the primary shaft come through. It has done a little bit of damage to this housing. You might just be able to see there's a bit of a lip on there. However, not the end of the world. We're going to knock this seal out first job. I want to get that out as complete as possible because I need to use it as a sample. Lovely. Even got some markings on it. That's some part. Oh, I don't know whether I've just rammed through that part number. Yeah, it's got some part numbers on it there. 47503. UACO, that says. Anyway, either way, seal's out. She's in good order. Just wants that final clean up. We'll get on to this next. So as you can probably tell, we've lost sound here for some reason. I don't know why. I'm still getting the hang of that camera, but anyway, basically what we're talking about here is the main bearing on the primary shaft, showing you the condition of the rolls that have come out. You can see that one's quite severely lozenged shape. We've really milled some flats onto those, so amazed really that there wasn't more noise from the gearbox when these rollers were sort of jammed and falling apart. This is the bearing carrier for that large bearing, bolts into the front of the gearbox. I think that back has been punched out when the shafts moved up and down and the bearings rollers themselves have popped out. I think that's probably been happening when the gearbox itself has been moving the primary shaft up and down, moving the main shaft and ultimately popping out of overdrive. So we've got the primary shaft now in the press, in the little Chinese press. That's been brilliant, by the way. But we've got our best pair of squints on here because we've got a lot of pressure on. We're giving it some map gas, trying to warm up that inner race to get it off that shaft. And then before you know it, we get sound back. That's bad news. I think we're bending these bolts. In fact, we are bending the bolts, aren't we? So I don't think we've made any movement there either. I think we could be looking at a sharp chisel here, chaps. Right, absolutely didn't want to do this way, but we're going to have to. I've been into the firewood pile and made myself a little bit of a containment. That's still quite warm, that shaft. This is the bearing track that we want, and I'm going to have to try and split it because I just can't press it. Right, we'll see if we can get a nick in here with the slitting disc. Right, well that front end here, I don't want to take that any further. I don't really want to take the back much further. I'm going to just try and get the chisel and see if we can part him. You tough old bugger. No, we've definitely split something there. You can hear the tone change. There we go. And then for no real reason we appear to lose sound again for some reason, but as you can see here, we've got the chisel in, the bearing's now relaxed, and we're bashing it off that primary shaft. Nut comes into play here because obviously it acts as an end stop and protects the thread. That's it, clear. Left hand thread, remember, you can see me unscrewing it clockwise here. Still hot. That's hot as well. Here we've cooled off and I'm trying to demonstrate that we've not gone through, and that's why there's no damage to the shaft. You can see we've not quite gone through there, and the inside of the bearing where it fits onto the shaft is more or less perfect. Here's the shaft, nut back on, and it's looking pretty good. Didn't even bother sanding this down. It was Sunday night, so we got the oven on, and what's this we've brought down? Gloves on, she's warm, a bit of smoke coming off that, and there we go. Bearing race straight onto the shaft. Went an absolute treat, that part of it. Right, it's the morning after, everything's cooled down. This bearing track is fitted to the shaft, lovely, but I've got some concerns. This is the old bearing track, and as you can see, it's got this raised lip on it, which I suppose could act as an end stop. This is plain. The track surface is the same sort of size as the original. Then the other problem I've got is this washer would normally sit on the top, creating a sandwich area for the bearing track, or the bearing race, I should say. So if I look at the washer itself, it does have a little bit of wear, but that's probably due to the failure of the bearing. This one doesn't appear to have anything much on it, so I'm a little bit unsure on whether I need to get another track or get it machined or fit as is. Now, on the basis that the primary shaft can't go further into the box because it's on the main shaft, and you know, it is where it is, and it can't go further into the flywheel because it's into the pilot bearing, and that's where the pilot bearing is. I'm wondering whether I'm actually overthinking it. So my plan is I'm going to assemble the bearing as is and the primary shaft as is in the box and give it a pull and see what we've got. But I don't know, I think we should be okay. Right, so we've got the bearing into the housing now, so I'm pleased with that. I've consulted a few people today. It's now Monday. I've consulted a few people about this bearing not having that outer step on it that we talked about, and the general consensus of opinion was let's suck it and see. It can't go anywhere because it can't go backwards because it's going into the box, and it can't go forwards because it's going into the flywheel, into the pilot bearing on the flywheel. But I am going to fit the old step washer off the other bearing, but it's you know, it is what it is. It's gone together okay. Yeah, we just need to get on and build it up. So we'll get it out of the vise, get it on its back and put the seal surface on, etc. So I'm winding the nut on,
anti-clockwise. I've given it a bit of a rub with the file, taking the points off it and tried to sand those edges off. The wife's been trying to do that to me for years. Anyway, this obviously retains that wear ring or sealed surface, whatever you want to call it. Quick tighten with these Stiltsons. That's all I've really got that's that big, and I wasn't going to make anything custom for just this one-off job. Couple of dabs with punch there, they just make sure it's all seated and we get another quarter turn. So I've got the copper jaws in on the vise. Do you think he looks like a young Tommy Walsh? Yeah, me and all. I think that's probably enough for us. I don't think that needs to be over tight personally. I think it needs to be tight, but not ridiculously tight. It's got the sealer on, just need to sort the grub screw out. Right, so we've got the nut on, we've got the grub screw in, we've got the bearing in, it's all complete, it's all moving, it's all okay. I think I'm happy enough with that. The next time you're going to see that, it's going to be hanging out the front of that 8-speed Foden box. Super. Right, so we've got the shaft back in. It has made all the difference. That gearbox is rotating lovely. There's absolutely no up and down in it. That bearing really has sorted our problems out, I think. I'm going to show you the debris out of the gearbox next, but this front end's more or less done, all but for putting the plate on and the cross shaft. Right, so gearbox has fared pretty well really. It was quite dirty inside, it had got some water in it, but I've managed to sort that out. The only visible damage is this broken tooth here, and it's the same on the reverse gear. This is your reverse gear idler, sorry, this is your reverse gear power. So you've got your constant power down, reverse gear, and your reverse gear idlers at the back. And you can see that she's had a bit of a chewing over years. So I think that that damage there is actually from somebody trying to select a gear. Possibly clutch stop adjustment, possibly just somebody being a bit rough with it. But the gearbox itself has cleaned out pretty well. I'll show you the bits that have come out of it in a minute. So this is a pretty good shot of that bearing housing out to repair. And you can see now that the bearings have probably shot through here, busted that casing out, and that's what's probably caused some of the trauma to it. That rattling noise, that's the clutch brake. So I'm pleased with that, that's all in place. We'll just have a quick look at the debris that's come out. Here we are. Basically what we've got here is just leftover bits of bearing and chewed up bits of casing. I think the big lumps will be coming out in the gearbox either last time I changed it or whenever, but it's obviously ground itself away. Overall we've got no major damage, so I think we've been really lucky. So next job is to get the side plate on and get the box back in. That's looking pretty good now. I actually rebushed these back in the day. I reamed out the housing because it had worn oval, and these are actually LDV convoy front kingpin bushes, and they fit an absolute treat. The other thing to remember is don't forget to put your clutch brake in, because nobody's ever had to remove a gearbox to put the brake in, have they? So that's all that sorted out. So we've got some silicone on the box and we've just put this paper gasket in. they do need a bit of help on machine surfaces. This side panel's interesting in as much as the bottom left hand corner PTO aperture is blocked off. I assume that's a cost saving exercise so they don't have to machine the holes in, etc. Just drop the dipstick in there. So as you can see on the box here, that black line, that's where I've had that selector off and I've resealed both the input shaft from the gear stick and where the selector fits onto the side of the box. So I didn't pull the clutch on this, and there's a couple of reasons for that. That tag I'm showing you there is dated 97 and the truck came off the road in 98, and I tried the primary shaft in the clutch and the pilot bearing seems okay. Just getting the fork over that thrust bearing with a reassuring clunk there. Nobody's ever had to pull a box to put the fork the right side, have they? Always difficult on your own. Ivy's giving us a rendition of a Mariah Carey song there. All buttoned up, lovely. Let's get that jack out of the way. Right, so we've sent the drone up for a look over the top of the gearbox, and basically we can see there that we've got the rod linkage for the clutch and the gear shift linkage. This beauty is drain bung out of the main box, and this one the drain bung out of the transfer box, both magnetic. Amazing really, for the short distance this truck's covered. That was brand new oil.
Right, well, oil wise on this, we're going for SAE 140 because I wanted a heavy oil and Bice is heavy. Just show you this. I've also got it to put in the transfer box down the back here. Right, we've got the gear oil in, everything's bolted up, air pipes are on. I haven't put the catwalk on. Don't want to put the catwalk on till I've made sure I've got a gear and I've got a and everything's nice and tight and nothing's leaking. So let's give her a cold start and see what she does.
Well, we can get up gears and clutch is biting and we've got no oil leaking. So let's get the catwalk on and take it to run, I think. Right, it's about 8 o'clock on a Sunday morning. Finished the gearbox fitment yesterday. I want to whip it up the road before the road gets too busy with all the bleeding tour pests up and down. So we'll get it fired up, build some air, get the doors open and get it up and back down the road. Unfortunately we've no cameraman and I do really want to do a Starling's having a look. Unfortunately we've no cameraman. But I do want to do a drive along video at some point and I'm sure we will do. Let's get it fired up. So we're back from our test drive now. I think you can pretty much see there that you know the primary shaft is dry and there's no oil residue there or anything. Did about 5 miles and you know, driven it properly sort of thing through all the ranges and you know, giving it a bit of umpty, so one would expect an oil leak to show itself even in that sort of time frame if we've got it wrong, and I don't think we have. Just one other thing to note on this, if I can show you. So the gap between the thrust bearing and the clutch stop brake should be 1/2 inch. That's correct adjustment, and that ensures that you've completed 2 activities there. One, you've disengaged the clutch because you obviously don't want to drive, and 2, you've stopped the gearbox with the residual thrust of the clutch mechanism. So by compressing the clutch brake plate, you've done that, but you need your adjustment to be correct, and that gap needs to be 1/2 inch. And the easiest way of doing it, if I can get this in, is to get an 1/2 inch drive extension, pop it in and see what you get. And obviously you can see here that you've got no turn, it's nice and tight. Yeah, and that's the correct adjustment.
and that's why we don't graunch a gear when we put it in from a standstill.